Welcome to chapter 18 of the book of Exodus. We are now with the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Sin, which is fairly close to the Red Sea. We're only 3 months out from when they left Egypt. So 1 million people traveling are not going to make a lot of headway very fast, but it begins, and Jethro, the priest, Eref's hieroglyphics, the Eref's, that's the derivative, priest of Midian, the father of Moses, heard acoustics, all as much as the Lord did to Israel. So we heard about Jethro earlier when Moses left Egypt, fled after killing an Egyptian man, and he went into Midian. Midian, let's go over to our map here. Now, Midian is actually over in this area here, the Midianites, so which goes along with where Moses went to Midian, and then he ended up going up into this area here with Jebel Mountain. I guess that means Sin Vasher, which is the mountain, I believe, at Horeb. It's called Horeb, and it's the mountain where he went up to talk to God. And we're going to get into that here next chapter. But so basically, the Midianites lived in this area, and later in Numbers 31, when we get there, we'll see that the Israelites warred with the Midianites. They had just warred with the Amalekites in the last chapter, so that was within a couple of months of them leaving. Now, I'm not exactly sure, but later they send these spies into Israel, which would be just right up in here. Means they left that area and went up into Israel. So it makes sense that they wouldn't be way down in here. So now with that, it says, for the Lord led Israel out of Egypt. So this is what Jethro heard. Earlier he was called Ruel, where he's the father of Moses' wife Zipporah. It says, then Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, took Zipporah, the wife of Moses, after her release. So apparently she was released because of Moses leaving and going back to Egypt. And in that time, she circumcised her 2 sons, who mentions them here. And it says, and the 2 sons of his, the name to the one was Gershom, saying, this is what Moses said, I was a sojourner in an alien land. And the name of the second was Eleazar, saying, for the God of my father is my helper, and he rescued me from out of the hand of Pharaoh. Now, we hear nothing about these 2 sons in Zipporah after this. They're basically, no information is given. It has, I think, one place where it mentions the names and their sons, and that's about it. So now later, Moses has a wife, is a Cushite, which is somebody from the south of Egypt, and Aaron and Miriam had a problem with him marrying this woman. So apparently he had 2 wives. There's arguments of whether they're the same one or not. But anyway, these 2 were not heard again after this. And it says, and came forth Eothor, that's the Greek name, the father-in-law of Moses, and the sons and the wife to Moses, into the wilderness of which he camped at the mountain of God, which be the one I showed you there, Jebel Sin, what was the name of it? Jebel Sin Bishar, and also is called Horeb. The name Jebel Sin Bishar is today. but the wilderness of sin is in that name even today. And it was announced to Moses, saying, Behold, your father-in-law, Iothor, comes to you, and your wife and your 2 sons with him. And Moses came forth to meet with his father-in-law, and did obeisance to him. That means he got down on the ground, put his head to the ground. That's doing obeisance. They use this for worshiping. He didn't worship his father as far as playing musical instruments and all of that sort of things. But this word proskenevo has been changed by the King James writers to the old word worship, and now it has people changed the word worship to playing guitars and singing and all sorts of things, which has nothing to do with it. It has to do with bowing down on the ground to someone of a higher authority than yourself. And he kissed him, and they greeted one another, and he brought them into the tent. So now he left them by themselves, and Zipporah was one of the 7 daughters of Jethro, and so that family stayed there in Midian, and Moses left with nothing and comes back with 1 million people, the leader. And Moses described to his father-in-law all as much as the Lord did to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians on account of Israel. Now, Israel, the people, or Jacob, the name, are both. And all the trouble coming to them in the way with the Amalekites and the water and the food and the not having food and water and so forth. And that the Lord rescued them from out of the hand of Pharaoh. And then, of course, Pharaoh chasing after them and through the Red Sea. And from out of the hand of the Egyptians. Or it was a river, actually. It says he struck a river. So this might not have been the deepest part of the Red Sea, but just a most northerly part where it was narrower, sorry. And Iothor was amazed over all the good things which the Lord Kyrios did to them, that Kyrios rescued them from out of the hand of the Egyptians and from out of the hand of Pharaoh. And Iothor said, Evlogitos Kyrios, eulogy comes from that word, a good saying. Blessed be Kyrios, for he rescued his people from out of the hand of the Egyptians and from out of the hand of Pharaoh. Now I know that Megas Kyrios, the Lord is great. Mega is large, Kyrios, above all the gods. So he's mentioning all the gods. Of course, he's a priest of another god, but now he knows that the Lord is great above all. Now, whether he knows that he's the only God, it doesn't say. Because of, I got to scratch that out. Because of this, I'm going to do a strikeout here. There it is. Because of this. I got 2 ofs. That they made an attempt against them. Probably he's talking about the Egyptians, against the sons of Israel. And Iothor, the father-in-law of Moses, took whole burnt offerings and sacrifice offerings to God. So he probably had sheep, which because that's what they were raising there in Midian with the daughters when Moses came upon them, giving the sheep a drink, and Moses helped the girls and shooed away the people that were being brutes towards the daughters. So he brings these animals, not enough, I'm sure, for 1 million people, but some. And Aaron and all the elders of Israel came, doesn't say how many elders here, to eat bread with the father-in-law of Moses before God. Now, we haven't received the law yet, what is clean and unclean. So basically here we have a non-Jew coming and eating with these Jews, but they weren't told not to do that yet or to have anything to do with these other people. So this was entirely correct. And it came to pass after the next day, Moses sat down to judge the people. And all the people stood by Moses from morning until evening. Asperas, Vespers, comes from that. So all the people all day long coming to Moses. What a job. And Eothor, seeing all as much as Moses, did to the people and judging, says, what is this? And I put that in italics because the is not in there. What, and then is italics. Is this which you do to the people? Why do you sit down alone? Monos, a monastery alone is a monastery, the mono. And all the people stand by you from morning until evening. And Moses says to his father-in-law, well, because the people come to me to seek after a judgment from God. For wherever there is to them a dispute, and they should come to me, I litigate each, and I instruct them in the orders of God and his law. Of course, now the law hadn't been set down yet, so his orders in the law, the only ones was Passover and unleavened bread and Sabbata, the Sabbath. And the father, unless there's other ones we don't know about, and the father-in-law said to Moses, to him, not rightly do you do this thing, and you will be corrupted in unsufferable corruption. It's going to be terrible. It's going to wear you away. And all the people which is with you are all going to suffer because of this. This thing is heavy on you, or to you, actually, because in the dative, you will not be able to act yourself alone. You might be able to do it now, but not very long. Now then, akuson mu, here, acoustics comes from that. I shall advise you. So now it's interesting in that we have a non-Jew advising the leader of the Jews. And he says, God will be with you. This is his advice. You become to the people for the things before God, and you shall offer their words to God. So whatever things he's going to directly go to God, and you shall testify to them the orders of God and his law, and he'll tell them what the orders and the laws are, and you shall signify to them the ways in which they shall go by them, and which way to go, and the works which they shall do, which are all going to be given real soon here on Mount Horeb, within days, I guess. And you yourself, look about from all the people, from mighty men. Andros, we have an android, comes from that. Dinatus, dynamite, dynastic. Mighty men and godly. Just men detesting pride. And this is so a judge is to be a just person, righteous, not to take bribes, we're told, not to take the face of a person if it's a slave or if it's a important person, if it's a stranger, or if it's a friend, and detesting pride, not thinking that he has all of the power. I was watching a video on this judge in Nazi Germany judging these two, a brother and sister, towards the end of the war, who were involved in the I think it's called the White Rose episode, where the people were coming against Hitler towards the end, and these young people, and they went in front of this judge who just berated them, made fun of them, ridiculed them, and yelled at them, and everything. Just as the ideal unjust judge, and prideful and everything, and sentenced them to death, and they were executed. But then right after that, bombs came over Berlin, dropped one right on top of his head, and collapsed the building and fell on him. But anyway, it continues, and Jethro says, and you shall place of them, these just men, over them commanders of thousands, and commanders of hundreds, and commanders of 50s, and commanders of 10s, and these would be military rulers. And they shall judge the people every hour but the enormous thing they shall offer unto you. But the little matters of the judgments, they shall judge them, and they shall lighten the load from you, and shall give aid to you. So he says, if this thing you do, then God will strengthen you. So God alleviates, if we get ourselves in a bind too much, and I look at myself sometimes, I think, well, that's me because of trying to do all kinds of things as far as doing the video seminars and packaging up the Bibles and sending them out, making Bible bags. I sew them myself. I just love to do it. And I'm busy from morning till night. Hardly have any time, but that's what I enjoy doing. But God will strengthen and alleviates our weaknesses. Now, my weakness isn't alleviated. It just, I don't, the Lord, miraculously, I only get 1 or 2 orders a day. And I always think, well, gee, why don't I get like 10 or 15, another day only 1, another day 5, 6, why doesn't it? It's almost like every day is only 1 or 2, so I'm not really pushed to get a couple of orders out. I mean, I have to type up get the invoice ready and then take the Bible and put them in the bags and then put them in other bags and put them inside of a box with the packaging, tape the box, get the label, put the label on it, and then go take them to the post office. But I can do that. It's not hard to do. So in a way, the Lord is doing that with me. He is alleviating my weakness, and I believe if anybody is overworked doing the works of the Lord, then He will bring some respite to what you're doing if you are in that position. Pray that He would do that. And He says, if this thing you do, then God will strengthen you, and you'll be able to stand. And all this people shall come unto their place with peace. Irene comes from that, means peace. And Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did as much as he said to him. And Moses chose mighty men from all Israel, and appointed over them as commanders of thousands, commanders of hundreds, commanders of 50s, and commanders of 10s, and judicial recorders. Boy, look at that long Greek word. Grammatoisagogis. Grammatoisagogis. And they judged the people every oran, hour. It's a transliteration. But the enormous matter they offered unto Moses. But every light matter they judged themselves. And Moses sent out his own father-in-law, and he went forth unto his land. That doesn't say about Zipporah and the 2 sons, and they probably went back with the father-in-law, I would have supposed. So that was the end of that. Now we go into the next chapter, and we're there at that mountain Horeb, the mountain of Rephidim. They lifted away from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai. So we'll go into that to the next chapter, but that, if you want to follow it in the stages that are mentioned, you'll find them in Numbers 33, the whole chapter, but verse 18, I believe it has Rephidim, but after Rephidim in 18, 19, it doesn't mention Horeb, which would, to me, the most important place, the wilderness of Sinai and the holy mountain. But we'll find out what happens there next in our next video seminar. Hope you'll join us then. God bless.